Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities such as new companies and potential business partners and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest and start investing and networking on public.com.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Grid Live Encore. I'm Ben Schneider alongside Brandon Crossland. Brandon, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Ben. It's good to see you again, and glad to be back here in the virtual studio for another Grid Live Encore. It's a great place to be.
Yeah, great to see you too. Of course, we had a bit of a lighter weekend. We got a busy weekend coming up next week with a bunch of series coming on the schedule here. But just a couple of series in stock car racing this weekend. NASCAR in action at Phoenix Raceway with the ARCA Menards series, a combo race actually with Big ARCA, or ARCA West rather, I should say, and the Xfinity series in action as well, joining the Cup series out there in Phoenix, Arizona. But as we begin the show tonight with the ARCA recap, I do want to take a brief moment to send our thoughts, prayers, and condolences to the family of Steven Stotts. Stotts was the co-driver of David Gilliland Racing's number 17 ARCA team hauler, who was tragically killed last Tuesday as he was transporting Taylor Gray's car to Phoenix for the ARCA race on Friday night. Gray's car did eventually arrive at the track with no truck race this weekend. It allowed the team to use Haley Deegan's truck team's hauler to bring out a car that was originally intended for Gray at this weekend's upcoming ARCA East race at Pensacola. And we take these kinds of jobs for granted, I think, in a sport like this where there's so much travel and so many moving parts that need to be transported all over the country year-round. So, Brandon, the first question here as we open up the night. In light of this tragedy, do you think we as a sport need to do a better job recognizing the individuals that make up these race teams that help them just so much as get to and from the track every weekend?
Yeah, first of all, I just want to go ahead and give my personal condolences to the Stotts family, and our thoughts and prayers are with them as well. It's just a terrible, terrible thing to see last week on the news and through Twitter as the pictures unfolded. Just a horrific event out there in Texas, and it was horrible to see. And but yeah, when you look at our sport, a lot of the focus does go on driver, and even the pit crew. But there's a lot of behind the scenes parts that we don't even think about until we maybe see it in a documentary here or there. And the truck hauler driver and the transporter crew definitely plays a big role in that. We see them a lot in social media, perhaps like I think of like Furniture Row Racing, like their last race before they closed down their doors. They showed it, the pictures and video of entering the hauler and stuff like that. And I've seen Facebook. There are some NASCAR hauler drivers that you can follow on Facebook, and they will share live feed of them driving from Mooresville to wherever they're going. So they do show a lot of interaction with the fans. But yeah, I think certainly some more light could be shown on that side of the sport. And it's just a tragic event to happen, and just praying that the Stotts family can find comfort through this time. And a win was, I'm sure, very, very healing for not only them, but also all of David Gilliland Racing.
Yeah, of course, we'll talk more about Taylor Gray's win here in just a moment, but I completely agree with you. I think that the hauler drivers are really the unsung heroes, because without them, there are no cars at the racetrack. And, I think we lose sight a lot, not just with the personnel in the haulers and everything, but, the pit crews and people who work back at the shop. Obviously, the drivers get all the praise and the media attention They're the ones that are recognizable by the fans the most, and then probably the crew chiefs after that. But there are so many more people that go into each and every one of these race teams, and every entry for the teams that run multiple cars. It's such a team sport, and I think it's important for us to remember that, especially when you see something like this happen. Like I said, I think we take for granted, just how much travel back and forth we have. We went through it a couple of years ago when Dale Earnhardt Jr. had that scare with his plane crash. It's easy to lose sight of just how much travel there is. And, we talk all the time about the drivers knowing the risks every time they strap into the race cars. We don't always think about the risks that are involved with travel, even from what we do every day, let alone driving all across the country all year to 38 race weekends a year or whatever it is. Probably a little bit less for the ARCA teams, but still not an insignificant amount. So certainly our thoughts and prayers are with all of DGR and the Stouts family in particular. Now, like we said, Gray's team was able to bring a spare car out to Phoenix Raceway, and they did elect to race on in Steven Stott's honor. And Gray went on to take a really emotional victory, leading 43 laps en route to his first ever win in the main ARCA Menards series. Gray does have 3 additional victories in standalone ARCA West races. So, Brandon, I think we touched on this a little bit already, but just how massive of this is this victory for everybody at DGR in light of what happened this past week?
It really is a dream come true for DGR. And Taylor Gray is such a young race car driver. I think he's only 16 years old. And the amount of pressure that had to be on that young man is super immense. And he handled it like a champ. And so did the rest of the guys on the box. And he really got to enjoy it there in victory lane. And you could tell he was holding back the emotions for sure. And this is really reminiscent to me. I know this might be reminiscent for onlookers like you and me, Ben, of our age, remembering 2006 with the Hendrick tragedy, and where we lost all of those members of the Hendrick family in the helicopter crash or plane crash. And
2004, I think, right?
Oh, 2004. Okay, right. Wrong year. Well,
I know what you mean.
Yeah. And then Jimmy Johnson coming right back at Atlanta and taking the victory, and how such it was. I mean, it was a celebratory win, but it was also a very somber win too, because of bouncing back from tragedy in that manner. And we've seen that many times in stock car racing. But
yeah, well, my mind went to 2001, obviously, with Dale Earnhardt and what DEI had to go through. And I think a lot of times people, they obviously remember what Dale Earnhardt Jr. did in July when the series came back to Daytona. I think a lot of times people forget that there was a race the very next week at Rockingham right after the tragedy, just as this race was right after the tragedy that occurred. And Steve Park driving for DEI, went on to win that race. And, if you go back and listen to when Steve Park came on Dale Jr.'s podcast, that Dale Jr. download episode, I highly recommend listening to it. There's a point where Junior mentions, if Steve hadn't gone and won that race, it probably would have been much more difficult for DEI to continue on and go forward. And you have to wonder if they would have had the success that they had in the early to mid 2000s without that boost of their morale and helping with the healing process, so soon after what happened. So I think similarly, I hope that DGR can take a moment to take this all in this week and celebrate it, and then get right back at it at Pensacola this weekend and throughout the rest of the ARCA season.
Yeah, it really was a what if for them. And I didn't really realize that. And that whole 2001 season after that tragedy was just a big list of wins for DEI, not only for Park, but, Junior at the Pepsi 400, and then Michael Waltrip having some success. Of course, had, the Daytona, but success as well. It was all shared throughout DEI.
Yeah, certainly. And getting back to the race weekend, at Phoenix here, we talked about Sammy Smith a little bit on this show before. He looks like he's primed to have a great season with Kyle Busch Motorsports. And he took pole position Friday night at Phoenix and looked set to maybe potentially back up his win at New Smyrna. But he faded to third by the end of the race. He said his car got tight towards the end there. And also joining him in the top 3 was Daniel Dye, who finished second. Dye took the lead midway through the race and looked like he might have a shot at the win as well for himself and his GMS team. But he chose the outside lane on a lap 138 restart, which gave Taylor Gray the opportunity to make the pass and come through for the win. So Brandon, obviously in this sport, in all sports really, hindsight is always 20/20. You can always look back on mistakes you make or decisions that could have gone slightly differently. Dye seemed to suggest in his post-race interview that this was something, I think the words he said were he's never going to make this decision again. Do you think choosing the top lane on that restart, maybe you could say, cost him the victory on Friday night?
Yeah, it certainly might have. And with this new, it's still new to me, this new layout of Phoenix Raceway, with that, you open out with the dog leg as your first part of the restart. And I think as Danica Patrick mentioned on Sunday, the 160 or 140 feet worth of not only racing surface, but also the dog leg, it almost begs for you to take the inside lane if you get the opportunity with the choose rule. And I don't know. I certainly don't know the inner workings of what the 43 camp was thinking as far as strategy going into that last restart. But yeah, in hindsight, the inside may have played out for him in his favor, because that outside lane with these lower horsepower ARCA Menards series cars didn't really work out like he wanted it to. And a lot of beating and banging there on that last restart as well.
Yeah, well, the layout, I think that subject came up as well throughout the Cup Series race even as well. I think fans are kind of reminiscing, missing the old Phoenix, and not even the old Phoenix configuration, just the old location of the start-finish line. And, it really does, just when there's no yellow line rule, and I've been on record, I don't like the yellow line rule, but I think, it kind of needs to be a healthy balance between what we have at Daytona, Talladega, where it's completely forbidden, and what we have at Phoenix, where there's absolutely no track limits, and you just have this massive dogleg that's practically, like you said, begging for drivers to, as soon as they cross the start-finish line and no longer have to hold their lanes, hold their position, just completely cut off a good portion of the racetrack. And you particularly see that on the restarts.
They shouldn't have let go of their landscaper. I think the grass was a great tool there at Phoenix Raceway, and there's a landscaper out there in Avondale without a job. They need to get him back. Have some better racing.
Yeah, the layout certainly major discussion point. I'm sure it's going to keep being a discussion point every time we come back to Phoenix Raceway. And another driver that had a strong run on Friday night, friend of the show, actually, has appeared on Life on the Grid before. Roger Carruth started in P7, worked his way up towards the front, even looked like he had a shot to win the race himself as well. Restarted as high as second there towards the end, faded back a little bit to P4, but still a very strong finish from a young Rev Racing driver. So, Brandon, very simple question. Yes or no, does Roger Carruth get a win before the season's over?
Is the sky blue? I mean, it's almost a given with that equipment and the talent behind Rajah Carruth and the 6 machine. He had to change it to 61 for Phoenix. A little out of his element there with the ARCA combined. But no, he's going to have plenty of more opportunities before season end to stay up front and get that victory, and it's going to come sooner or later.
It's funny you mentioned that, because ever since K&N East and West went under the ARCA Menards banner, a lot of times when they do the combo races at Iowa, we'd see, Sunrise Ford would always have to bring different numbers out. And, it's inevitable with how many cars you have, you would get some East and West teams that usually run the same number. Since they've gone to ARCA, they've done this weird thing where sometimes you have, I think Taylor Gray even ran it at a West race last year, the 17E to signal that he's from the East Series. And we've seen cars run the W as well on that side of things. So interesting that Rev Racing decided to just go with a brand new number. I'm sure they could have run the 6E. We've even seen, I think Venturini Motorsports ran 2 cars that were number 25 at Bristol a year or 2 ago. And that was, an interesting situation where, they have numbers in their rotation that they could have used, but they still went with that East designation.
And weren't there 2 17s at Phoenix on Friday?
I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see how teams are choosing to work around that.
Well, Ben, I wanted to get a chance to give you a question here tonight. Rounding off the top 5 was Jake Drew, the highest finishing ARCA West regular. Drew crossed the line at Phoenix in November thinking he had won a championship before a last lap pass by Jesse Love on Drew's then teammate Trevor Huddleston took the title away from him. So, Ben, how good must this feel for Drew to start the season as the top West regular? And does this make him the clear early favorite for this season's title?
Well, like you said, it is early, and it is kind of weird how the West Series starts their season here with this combo race. But I'll pull the results up here for you guys. I want to just show everybody here. If you take a look at the top 10, Jake Drew is the only one with his Sunrise Ford Racing Camp that is actually a West Series regular that's slated to run the full season. We have a lot of West regulars that finished 11th through 20th. You see Cole Moore in there, Todd Souza, and Takuma Koga, some West veterans up there, Austin Herzog as well, and Tanner Reef. Paul Pedroncelli, of course, what a great season he had last year for that small independent team. So, as we look further throughout the field here, you see a lot of ARCA West regulars who are going to be running the full season, and I'm sure be in contention for the championship, a handful of them. But up front, Jake Drew, it may read that he's fifth in point standings right now, but that is going to turn into an advantage very quickly here as we get into the heart of the season. I think you're going to see Taylor Gray probably run some West races like he did last year. But Sammy Smith, I don't expect to see him at too many of them. I think he's more focused on trying to defend his East Series title. And Roger Caruth obviously focused on the main ARCA series, as is Sammy Smith for the races that he's eligible to run. But yeah, for Jake Drew, I got to tell you, it was Formula One fans will get this reference. It was basically the 2008 Brazilian Grand Prix all over again. Jake Drew crossing the line, not to win the race like Felipe Massa was, but still in P10, thinking that he had won a championship. And Charlie Crawl from the booth was even calling him the 2021 ARCA Menards Series West champion. Then the timing board came up and showed that Jesse Love had gained a position on the final lap. All the cameras were all focused on the new champion-elect, if you will. And then Jesse Love pulled that out right at the last second. There was some miscommunication with the Sunrise Ford teammate Trevor Huddleston that ultimately cost Jake Drew the title. So, I think anytime you lose out on a title that close, it's got to only fuel your fire to come back even stronger the following season and try to work to gain that title back. I think after losing a title in the way that Jake Drew did, on the final lap, even crossing the line, thinking that he'd won it, it's only got to fuel his fire even more. So I think you look at the results, to come away with the top five in a 39 car field, one of the strongest ARCA fields we've seen in a very long time. I know it was a combo race, but it's still great to see the car counts back up in any ARCA series these days. Jake Drew to come away with the top five, that's very, very impressive, and I think it speaks well to his championship chances this season.
Yeah, I was glad to see the car count like that, and I think that's the second time I've heard you use the 2008 Brazilian GP reference. And how many episodes have we had? Should I keep a tally for that?
Yeah, we got it. It's either 4 or 5, I think. Well, I know Kobe was on the first one. I know you missed the first one, but
oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I think we have a comment actually on that note from one of our regulars, Amber here. Hello, Amber. Will the car count continue to climb?
Let's hope so.
Yeah, I certainly. I don't have any insider information here myself, but it is certainly very promising, the car counts that we've gotten so far this year in the main ARCA series and ARCA West in particular. It will be interesting to see as we get into the first standalone race how many we have, but I think we have a good size of regulars that are slated to run the full season. So keep your fingers crossed. Hopefully we're out of the teens and into the 20s, at least for the majority of the races this year. So let's move on. Or go ahead, Brandon.
I was just saying, I am excited to get into the nitty gritty short track part of the ARCA seasons. I think that's really where the true racers start to come out.
Yeah, I totally agree. And the more the merrier. So hopefully we get the car counts back up a little bit, as Amber and all of us, I think, are hoping for. It's always great to see more competition. And, Phoenix, I think, was only further proof of that. So moving on to the Xfinity series, we had a great race at Phoenix this weekend, and we have to start, I think, with the race winner, Noah Gragson. It's been a great start to the season for the young junior motorsports driver. Gragson has finished in the top 3 in every race so far this season. He led 114 of the 200 laps on Saturday en route to the win, holding off Brandon Jones in a late race battle. And last week, Gragson became only the 6th driver in series history to start a season with 3 consecutive top 3 finishes. Now he has extended that streak to 4. He joins Kevin Harvick as the only other driver to do so. Harvick opened the 2005 Busch Series season with 4 straight second-place finishes, but he wasn't running the full season that year, so he did not even run the 5th race. Coincidentally, that race was at Atlanta, which is where the Xfinity Series will be next week. So, Brandon, we know that the playoffs are unpredictable, obviously, but we're 4 races in here. We've gotten a good idea, I think, of who the top teams and drivers are going to be this season. We look at what Noah Gragson has done. Is it safe to label him as a championship favorite at this point?
Yes, and before I say that, I just want to congratulate you on one of the biggest trolls in. Can we get that graphic up of the mullet? Do we have that here? Yes, it's right here. Noah, fantastic job. You trolled everyone by getting that shot done before the season and then taking it off. Business in the front, party in the back, and then take it all off. I love it. But anyway, yes, Noah Gragson is a shoe-in for the championship 4, I believe. Already punched in his ticket here at Phoenix, and it is only 4 races in, but I think he's Junior Motorsports is one of those top caliber teams of the field, and Noah Gragson is going to be able to punch his way in, and he may not win them all, but he'll find his way to stay in the top 5 for sure. And also, I think if Kevin Harvick did go on to race that race at Atlanta, I think he would have finished second or won the thing, because Kevin Harvick loves Atlanta. Oh, what was Atlanta?
Yeah, well, and Harvick loved the Busch Series in the mid-2000s. You think of a run that he ran on the next year in 2006 and how many races early he clinched that championship. And the interesting dynamic there, kind of had a chance to pull off the double. I think he had a strong Cup season as well in 2006. So anytime you can match Kevin Harvick in anything in NASCAR history, I'd say you're doing pretty well. So Noah Gragson, I think, absolutely. We can't say he's a shoo-in from a championship because we do have a bit of an unpredictable format. We'll be coming back to Phoenix, though, so Gragson getting the win here, that I think only continues to bode well for his championship chances. But yeah, I think absolutely a shoe-in, at least from a championship 4, if he can keep this up. And I want to talk about another driver who won't be in contention for a championship, but making the most of a limited opportunity once again. Trevor Bayne set the pace in qualifying, took pole position, and backed up his Stage 1 win a couple weeks ago at Auto Club Speedway with another Stage 1 win on Saturday. So, Brandon Bayne has looked very strong in his first 2 of the 7 scheduled starts he slated to run this year. Gets another top 5 finish on Saturday. Has he already proven that he deserves another full-time opportunity in one of NASCAR's top 3 series?
If it were me paying the bills and if I had the money, yes, I'd say he's already proven himself, but I can't speak for the team owners in the Xfinity series right now. But you got to admit, 2 stage wins is impressive. Getting the pole at Phoenix is very impressive in front of this stacked field. And he's got what it takes in this Joe Gibbs equipment. I think something is very different. We're seeing a new Trevor Bayne come back from the ashes. And I really am looking forward to the rest of his limited schedule this year. And hopefully around August or September, we can start seeing what kind of deals are going to roll his way, because I think it's going to happen.
Yeah, well, I know we talked a couple of weeks ago after a strong run of Fontana. I think he got a lot of criticism when he was at Roush, but, Roush's Cup team obviously hasn't been up to par with their historical standards in recent years. So, you put Trevor in a proven good equipment like the JGR 18 car, I think it certainly proves that he deserves to have another opportunity to kind of revive his career, much like a couple of drivers that we're going to talk about in a second here. But in the meantime, another comment from Amber here. How old is Trevor? He's still young, and I think maybe there might be another Cup opportunity. I know he was 20 when he won Daytona. That was 11 years ago. So if you do the math,
birthday, Trevor Bayne.
I believe he is 31 years old. So certainly not too old for another chance in the Cup Series if an opportunity comes his way.
No, certainly not. I'm just trying to fact check the age for you here.
Yeah,
I believe,
his birthday was in February. Yeah. I think he would have to be 31, right?
Yes, that's right. Yep.
You do
February 19th. Shares my brother's birthday.
Nice. And another comment from SHT here. Who were your candidates to win the NASCAR championship this season? I'm going to assume we're talking Xfinity here. I think Gragson was certainly one of the preseason candidates, having a couple of Xfinity seasons under his belt. Daniel Hemrick, you'd think being in a new team, it might take him a little bit of time to get up to speed, but, colleague had a car in the championship 4 last year with AJ Allmendinger. So I think either one of those guys could be in the championship 4 again this year. Justin Allgaier is always a veteran driver. You can't count him out. So I guess that might be my way too early championship 4 prediction here, but certainly too early to tell for sure. There's a lot of drivers you could throw in the mix there.
Yeah, my pick was AJ Allmendinger. I think from the very beginning, as soon as I saw he was going for the championship with all the road courses on the schedule, I think you'd be crazy not to add him to your arsenal.
And another comment here from Amber: can Bane replace Truex if Truex retires in a couple of years? That could be an option. We'll see. Brandon Jones has been in the Xfinity Series for quite a while now. I don't know if he would ever take the opportunity to move up to Cup, but that's another driver Gibbs have in their pipeline. And actually, speaking of the Truex family, Ryan Truex is scheduled to run a handful of races in that 18 car as well this year. So, if Ryan impresses, maybe that might be an opportunity. I don't know if he would be the one that replaces his brother at Joe Gibbs. That would be kind of interesting to have that family dynamic there. But there's certainly no shortage of talent in the Toyota pipeline. So I think they're certainly set, and they don't have as many cars to fill as well. I think if anything, that's been a bit of a problem for them, trying to fill all those seats and losing. I think of just what happened to Harrison Burton. Getting the opportunity to go up to Cup this year, but it's with a completely different team and a completely different manufacturer than the Toyota teams that he was driving at the early stages of his career.
Yeah, we may see something like that happen to Trevor if he gets the opportunity to go back to Cup.
Yeah, how can I forget Ty Gibbs, of course. Ty Gibbs having a great start to the year as well, already proven that he belongs with multiple Xfinity wins under his belt already. And I think I mentioned Brandon Jones as well. Gragson and Allmendinger are certainly not bad picks if we're trying to make a way too early championship 4 here.
I wanted to comment on the spin, though, for Ty Gibbs with Josh Berry. He believes Josh Berry tagged him coming out of 3, and that was one of the big highlights to the race. What were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, it is kind of interesting. We went through this with Ryan Sieg just last weekend. I think Ty Gibbs certainly has a lot of talent, but this was one of the talking points we had last year, I think. And it's not only Gibbs. I think I can't even blame Gibbs that much for his aggression. I think that there's this culture that we've created in the lower series with drivers that, in the case of Ty Gibbs in particular, I don't think it's unfair to say he's been a little bit privileged with kind of having a foot in the door already with his last name and with the connections with Monster and some of his other sponsors. These are drivers that, unlike back in the day, didn't have to grow up working on their own equipment and their own cars like Ryan Sieg and other veterans of Xfinity and trucks and things like that have had to continue to do. And that's through no fault of their own. And we're not knocking their driving talent or anything, but it would be nice to see them maybe clean their driving up a little bit before we see them in a Cup car. So I think that's part of what the Xfinity Series is made for. And I have no doubt that Ty Gibbs will continue to do that as he only continues to get better here. Now, as we look down the rest of the standings, a couple drivers that we've been talking about here these last couple of minutes, veteran drivers AJ Allmendinger and Justin Allgaier, they're the only ones besides Noah Gragson who have yet to finish outside the top 10 in the Xfinity Series this year, but have a 100% top 10 rate. So you got to think, Brandon, it's only a matter of time before each of them get into victory lane this year. So who does it first? Is it Allmendinger or is it Allgaier?
Well, this seemed like an easy question for me based on what I said a week ago or 2 weeks ago. But I think if Allgaier wins before Allmendinger, it's going to be because he wins at Atlanta Superspeedway. And then that would be more of a chance win, I think, is what we're going to see next week. But Allmendinger, his shot is going to come at Circuit of the Americas. And it's just because he's the road course ringer. That's always what he has been, and he's shown in Xfinity time and time again, and especially in the Kaulig equipment, that he can get it done on the road courses.
Well, that is actually the perfect segue to one of our final questions here as we wrap up the Xfinity segment. We are looking ahead to next weekend. The Xfinity Series joins the other 2 series, Trucks and Cup, at the newly reconfigured Atlanta Motor Speedway. We even got some news this week that we're expecting the yellow line rule likely to be in effect. I think there's been some mixed reaction on that as well, but that tells me that NASCAR at the very least is expecting a super speedway style race, and you got to think maybe that might be an opportunity with how strong the Kaulig cars have been at Daytona and Talladega in recent years. Maybe that's a chance for Allmendinger to take that first win overall, Geyer. I think you mentioned it's probably inevitable that he's going to win at least one of the road courses this year based on his past performance on those tracks. But I want to ask you, just not just thinking Xfinity, but, the Cup Series as well. What kind of racing are you expecting this weekend at Atlanta? Or do we really just have no idea? Are we going to have to wait and see?
We're walking into familiar territory as far as super speedway racing and the double yellow line. I'm not a fan of having the double yellow line at Atlanta, and that's because of the configuration on the front straightaway. And I think that's what a lot of people are having concerns about, is the D part of the front straight. And that kind of configuration has been unprecedented, I do believe, with the super speedway racing we have now. And if you implement the double yellow line rule, I think this is a big safety concern and issue that we really are going to have to be cautious about, and just pray there's no aggressive moves and people will mind their manners with this new configuration, which we can't. I mean, drivers are already planning out that they're going to go all the way next Sunday. I mean, they're already making that decision now before they even get to Atlanta. But we can only hope for the best, that this is going to be a safe weekend, because Ben, I'm not a fan of making it a super speedway type pack racing. And it'd be okay if there wasn't a double yellow line rule. Now there's a double yellow line, and I think this is going to make it very dicey there at the front straight.
Yeah, I think the yellow line rule is an interesting case, because I think it was, ironically enough, introduced out of the aspect of safety. Drivers going on the apron at Daytona and Talladega on the backstretch, and then having to get back up on the racing surface before they go into the banked corners, and that sometimes led to trouble. But I think it's almost counterintuitive, because now you have situations like we've seen a couple of times at Talladega. I'm thinking when Brad Keselowski won his first Cup race, and thinking back to what happened to Regan Smith just that previous race there at Talladega, when Smith was kind of forced below the line and went below and was penalized by NASCAR, sent all the way back to 18th. Keselowski knew that something similar was going to happen to him, and we saw Carl Edwards block, and Keselowski held his ground, which you can't blame him for, because he had to with the rule, and that sent Carl Edwards into a catch fence. But yes, continue to tell me about how the yellow line is a safety rule that is a necessary evil and needs to be in place here. So I think, like you mentioned, just the layout of Atlanta, I would be very hesitant to be excited about, a yellow line rule and making it feel even more like a Daytona Talladega race, because I think that could only cause trouble here. I see we've got another comment from Amber on the subject of safety. Are you concerned about the safety aspect at Atlanta for trucks and Xfinity? We lost truck drivers and ARCA drivers in Charlotte and Texas with the front stretch. I think safety is obviously not what it was 20 years ago. So I think, I'm not too concerned about drivers, losing their lives this weekend if we were to go that far. I think, from a safety aspect, I think you do have to worry about crashes and drivers suffering minor injuries such as concussions and things like that. But, generally speaking, from a safety standpoint, I would say, especially if you introduce the yellow line like we were talking about, it is kind of a concern for me.
I'm just going to take something out of Darrell Waltrip's playbook here. This is something he might say about it. It's a new configuration of the track. This isn't your daddy's Atlanta Motor Speedway. This is Atlanta Super Speedway now, for lack of a better term. So respect this joint. Have some respect for it, and don't just walk into it. If you're a driver, I don't think you can walk into it just like the place, because it definitely is the world of unknown.
And while we're on the subject of trying to predict things here, one final question. Very simple, Brandon. Does Gragson break Harvick's record and score a fifth straight top 3 finish this weekend?
I'm going to go ahead and say he will not. I believe he'll be involved in an early small one or big one at Atlanta.
I would have to tend to agree. I wouldn't put it past him, certainly, especially considering one of those races was at Daytona. It certainly is a possibility, but I think the odds are significantly in the favor that Gragson is going to get caught up somewhere in the rest of the pack. And even if he doesn't wreck, it would certainly be a tall order for him to keep that top 3 streak going. I just don't think the odds are quite in his favor. I'm not putting it past him, like I said, but I tend to agree with you. I think, especially if we get the kind of action that we're expecting to get, if people are saying that it's going to be like a Daytona Talladega, unfortunately, and like I said yesterday on the Grid Wrap-Up show, I hope I'm wrong, but I do expect multiple big ones throughout all three series this upcoming weekend.
Yeah, we'll certainly have plenty to talk about next Tuesday night, but I'll leave with this. I hope to be pleasantly surprised that this actually races in a new kind of way that we have never seen before with Atlanta Motor Speedway, and it's not going to be a carnage fest, and it'll be more of a racing spectacle like it deserves to be at Atlanta.
Yeah, so as we close out the show tonight, Brandon, since you have not been on the wrap-up show the last few weeks, I want to continue to give you the opportunity. What was your one shining moment throughout this racing weekend here?
It's got to be Taylor Gray winning for DGR after the tragic event during the week. And again, just thoughts and prayers for the family of Steven Stotts. And we're just deeply saddened by that event. And it was hopefully a healing thing for that team this weekend.
Yeah, I completely agree. I wanted to save that for my one shining moment tonight. So I said Chase Briscoe on yesterday's show getting his first win, as the rest of us did. I think we actually made it unanimous yesterday.
Yeah.
But, I think obviously when it comes to, if you just had to pick from a series that we cover here on this program, it's very hard to look past what happened with David Gilliland Racing on Friday night and Taylor Gray. Absolutely. I don't think anybody was complaining about the 17 team pulling that into victory lane on Friday night. So certainly a great moment for them, a great moment of healing. And as we said, our thoughts and prayers continue to be with the entire DGR team and specifically with the Stotts family. So be sure to subscribe to the Grid Network right here on YouTube. Follow us on all of our social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Grid is on absolutely every social media platform you can think of. Be sure to invest in the Grid Network as well. Take 5 minutes after the show if you like what we're doing, and consider joining our Patreon, Invest in Grid Network, to help keep us on the air throughout 2022. And of course, as always, a big thank you to Colin, Deschelle, and Mark for your contributions. We greatly appreciate it. If you want to make a one-time contribution, you can buy me a coffee. A link to that, our one-time donation option, is in the description box below as well. You can buy a coffee for your favorite honor or talent, whether it's me, Brandon, or anybody else here at Grid Network. And as always, any amount will help us continue to grow our motorsports media outlet. Thanks, as always, to our sponsor, Public.com, the stock market social media home. The referral code GRIDnet in the link below gives you $5 to invest. Public.com allows you to connect with your friends, make new friends, and use tools to learn how to invest in the stock market. On Wednesday, as always, we have Grid Tonight with Adam and Kobe. They will be discussing Colton Herta's new deal with the McLaren Formula One team, and I'm sure they'll have an update on the ongoing situation with the new Andretti Global team that Herta has been linked to as well. Thursday, we have Joe and Daniel hosting their usual Women in Motorsports program. And as always, we will have Grid Live pre-race on Saturday, Grid Live wrap-up on Sunday. We also have a special pre-race show planned for the 12 hours of Sebring. And then, of course, Brandon and I will see you right back here Monday night for another episode of Grid Live Encore. We've got a busy week ahead of us with trucks and Xfinity at the new Atlanta Motor Speedway, like we've been talking about. ARCA East will be at Pensacola. And Formula 2 and Formula 3 kick off their seasons alongside F1 in Bahrain.
It's all coming together, full stack next weekend.
It certainly is. We got a lot to look forward to. So for Brandon Crossland, I'm Ben Schneider. Thanks for watching, and as always, everybody have a wonderful week.
Don't be an anonymous investor. Join the stock market social media platform, Public.com. Invest any amount of money and share with friends and new friends. Discover new opportunities, such as new companies and potential business partners, and useful tools for beginners, and share your experience with friends on Public.com. Link in the video description gets you $5 for being a Grid Network viewer. Use the referral code GRIDnet for your free $5 to invest. Start investing and networking on Public.com.